Wow, what a terrible fade out and mute my phone. But too bad we're doing this. So, no do-overs. Welcome to episode 22 of the Empire to Exile podcast. I'm your host, Dorf, joined by Josh as always. How's it going, Josh?
Awesome, man. How are you?
Not too bad. Yeah, so with some happy news before we get into tonight's Doom show, where we take a whole hearty helping of black pills. Got engaged yesterday, so that's cool.
Congratulations,
thank
sir.
you, sir. I know we've already talked about that off the air, and I just got to say it, but, very happy things happened.
It's awesome, man.
Yesterday, and future Mrs. Dorf here is already that, so. Anywho, enough of that white pill shit here. So
you can.
Go ahead.
You'll always get to tell your kids, Dorf. Seriously, you'll get to tell your kids and your grandkids that you and mom got engaged in the year of the apocalypse. The year of 2020 when the world was falling apart. You were busy falling in love and getting engaged.
Yeah, the year of the coof, or whatever we're gonna call it. What do you think we're gonna call it? Looking back on it 10 years from now, what are we gonna call this? Is it gonna be the year of the coof? Wu flu takes the world. I don't know.
Yeah, the Rona, the lockdown.
Lockdown 2020.
Yeah. Something like that.
Anywho, let's get into
the pandemic.
I'm not on Team Pandemic, but I'm not going to say that it was planned, but that doesn't mean nefarious forces haven't used it to their advantage in reshaping the way the world works. So
I'm not on Team Pandemic either, actually. I go further than they do to some, but I feel like that's been totally taken by the Trumpkins, so they can have that. That's the QAnon Trumpkins, Gallon Pandemic, so they can have that. I'm not going to try to commandeer it from them. It wouldn't be right. I think you might have. I think you might have.
Anyway, I at least see where certain people are coming from, because despite lockdown being proven to be not an effective measure to control this. God, did I tip my hand on which side of this equation I think I'm on? I live in a solid red state, although I am on a border town with a blue state. Well, it's purple state border. But I hate to break it to you folks. Yes, California is the single largest agriculture state in the union. They might be able to feed themselves. They're not going to be able to feed Oregon and Washington. And oh, by the way, since you won't be able to truck stuff across North America, you're going to have to fly things to the Northeast. will become so prohibitively expensive. Enjoy starving. That's all I have to say. And that's under the the part of California, which is deep red itself, that where all the food is grown, wouldn't want to say "fuck you, we're out, we're going to go join Red America," or sorry, as Twitter called it, Jesus Land. Yeah, they're going to go join Jesus. You know, Jesus Land would.
Worth noting too, Dorf, that there are actually
that battle of attrition very quickly.
if you ever take the time to, I know you're a data guy. If you ever decide to
not to mention the industrial base of the
do the map in counties or cities, either one, pick one, you'll quickly see that there actually are no red states. There are only red cities and red counties. No state is actually red. Yes, I do have that backwards. I'm sorry. Yes, no, I'm sorry. No, there are no blue states. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that wrong. There are no blue states. There are blue counties. There are blue cities, and there's a lot of blue people. You know, there are a lot of people that vote that way in those in those areas. As the popular vote, which I know doesn't matter, shows there are more people out there voting blue than voting red, supposedly. So there's that. But there are truly no blue states.
In the, let's call it the internet space, or the commentary space here this past week, of, while America is one country, it really has been two countries living together in sort of disharmony since, the 1840s. And the only reason it didn't split permanently before and hasn't split again is Lincoln violated a bunch of civil and personal rights to fight a war to keep it alive. Bending the founding principles of the country to hopefully hold it together, hold the idea of it together. Abraham Lincoln, by the way, is unfortunately we're seeing the public school system schools because he didn't demonstrate that Black Lives mattered to him, which is just divisive bullshit on its own. But regardless,
ludicrous, actually.
Abe Lincoln threw journalists in jail, by the way. I hope you know that. I'm not saying that I agree with the statement, there's always the classic good old boys of the South that'll call the Civil War the War of Northern Aggression. And he's, in some sense, well, moot in my opinion, they're not wrong. America at that point should have split. The war was fought, the country was kept together ultimately, but has really been operating as two separate cultural entities ever since. Now, those lines have been blurred and increasingly being blurred each and every day as we advance on, and seemingly a collapsitarian rate nowadays, where you just have people just like, fuck this, I just don't want to, as you're seeing like the Great Plains, which are entirely empty until very just have population booms. Section of this country, like, fuck you, I'm gonna go live on my own 200 acres where I don't have to deal with people. I'm sick of these people. And unfortunately, Josh, is kind of rambling here, is the idea of America and what it stood for in large part is failed to live up to be, but is the idea of America worth, not necessarily a hot war, but is it worth fighting a culture war for? Because there seems to be forces, internal and external, that want to tear it all down because they want to pursue utopia where every time go ahead and try and achieve utopia. We'll see how that goes. History says it's going to go poorly, but keep trying.
Dorf, I think you made some excellent points. I was actually lucky enough while I was in grad school, I actually got to witnessed two expert Lincoln historians, two expert Civil War historians debate the was Lincoln a good guy? Basically, was the debate, and it was excellent. It was excellent to watch. Both sides make great points, and the one guy, I'll actually say his name. I don't think he'd want or be ashamed of it. These guys were great. I'm talking them up. But Professor Dent was the guy who was the anti-Lincoln talking point. Professor Hoyer, Dr. Hoyer, was the other side. And he made some of these points that, he used to just say, all these young men dead. Wasn't there another way, Abe? And I get that. To say that he bent the rules of the Constitution, definitely fair to say that.
It's not even bent. It's flat out broke.
Also, though, no, flat out broke is what they do now. No, he bent the rules of the Constitution, but it is a very different thing when the person bending the rules is legitimately a true believer in the rule book. When the person is saying we're going to do this, we're gonna. It's an instance of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Sure, and that's a fair point.
We're going to try to do this to save this.
That's a fair point, Josh. To try and make your point there even further, it's in modern politics, both the right and the left, the Constitution is a barrier to their policy and culture goals. It's an obstacle. It's not a guiding principle. It's just an obstruction, making the world in the image that they'd like to make it in.
An issue I take with some modern historians also is the idea that the Civil War was not fought over slavery.
Oh, it absolutely was.
A lot. It was. It definitely was. And truth be told, if you want to try to link, the divisiveness is the word I'm looking for, divisiveness of the nation back to that time, you have to take it right back. You have to take it all the way to the founding, because Thomas Jefferson knew when he wrote the Declaration of Independence that there was going to be hell to pay over this slavery issue, and it was going to come. He didn't know if it was going to come in his lifetime or soon after. It actually probably happened later than he thought it would. They knew that, but they couldn't fight the war. They couldn't fight the Revolutionary War without the slave owners and the slavery haters, for lack of a better term, on the same side. So they did that. It was good. They did have morality on their side. I believe that. They did have justice. They were trying to do the right thing. And yes, the beginning of the Democrat versus Republican. People like to try to, say right versus left, left versus right, civil rights versus against civil rights, the slave owners versus the non-slave owners. If you really want to take from 1858 to 2020, what the culture war that you were talking about is about, it's Republican versus Democrat. That is the one constant. And it sounds like I'm undersimplifying it or oversimplifying it, but I'm undersimplifying it. Actually, that's really what it's about. The Democrats love to point out that no, we switched what used to be a Democrat is now a Republican. And then they throw out a bunch of different years depending on which thing you're debating at that exact moment. Mm-hmm. No, according to some, they switched in the 1960s. No, they switched in the 1920s. No, they switched in the 1880s. Or maybe they never switched at all. Is kind of what I go for. But neither of these parties have ever been always been a small government party or a big government party or a pro-liberty party or an
only small
anti-liberty
government,
party.
only
They've
small
just
government
been their
when
parties.
they're only small government when they're not in power.
Right, right.
The only guy ever to take America
And
out
I've
of
said
debt,
this in the past.
the only guy to ever oversee America being out of national debt and running a surplus is Andrew Jackson. Time the United States has not ran a federal debt was briefly during his. Anyway, sorry.
Right.
Continue.
Right. I mean, to the way Andrew Jackson did it would be impossible nowadays unless we wanted to, be a country with the significance of Peru or Portugal or something along those lines. But you are right. You are right. So, Dorf, I love this topic. I've been asking the question of people since the late 90s, actually. I've been saying, I used to always put it as, is the world worth saving? Tonight's topic isn't that. Tonight's topic is more, is the nation
actually,
worth saving?
that's actually, I want to go there. The reason that I want to argue that the idea of America is worth saving is, if we let America die and we just say fuck it and take the big whole vial of the black pills and just collapse a Terry and bring on the boogaloo, we are not only dooming ourselves, because I hate to break it to you, you and I are not veterans, and I know that. The hot wars suck. Civil wars suck, and quite frankly, the amount of savagery and firepower and weaponry within the borders of the United States will make bodies look like a cakewalk. Tens or hundreds of millions of people would die in a modern hot war. It's something I want to encourage. The idea that I'm just going to be able to retreat to the middle of nowhere, farm my 50 acres, support my family, and I'm going to be left alone if glue breaks out, that's not going to happen. There is way too many people in any society that just won't leave people alone. And no matter what you do, they'll have their in your business. As unfortunately we've empowered those folks in the COVID Karen era, and that even ruined my faith in humanity even more with how much power we've given to hypochondriacs and Karens over the last year. If you let America fail, the West fails. And guess who will step up to fill that power vacuum? People you want nothing to do with. You think China's bad now? Just wait till they're not opposed. What is it? It isn't just you're definitely in a collapse. Yeah, you're definitely not going to be. And you know what? Russia's an insignificant player in this. They might be able to pick up a fight militarily, but economically, they can't touch China. China becomes the dominant world power. I guarantee, whether you're on the American left or the American right, if you make an honest assessment of what China unrestrained would do to the world, the world, the modus operandi of the world, you want no fucking part of that. We have our first world problems here, but when America isn't the global insurance policy, isn't the world's moral leader, and unfortunately the world's police, or at least the mutually assured destruction, or the warning to everybody to fuck around and find out, fuck around and all of a sudden you're gonna have a team of Navy SEALs at your door in 24 hours, blowing your brains out. Like, if that global force goes away, things aren't gonna stay the same. If the United States is rendered impotent by ramjet, supersonic ram missiles, which China and Russia both have, and if they decide to use them, the U.S. Navy is toast. Global shipping, global trade, and global commerce will collapse overnight. And we only saw a diluted version back in March and April in the COVID apocalypse. That was when limited things could, limited commerce, international commerce was taking place. Air freight, while expensive, was still flying. Just imagine when all of it goes away. A horrible place to live, and the resulting economic despair would probably kill more people, or just as many people as the hot war would be taking out concurrently. I don't think the folks that say bring on the collapse, jam your foot on the accelerator, I think will come out better in the end, are very shallow in thinking. That I will come out better because I'm assuming that 15,000 other variables are going to power vacuum. If America splits, and just doesn't play ball with each other, our global economic dominance ends. Who then has to take directives from China? Both of us. And if we're going to cooperate enough to stave that off, why split in the first place? Just, it's... The world is a lot scarier than the average person in the United States, and both of us in our warm homes here tonight, as it's below freezing, was willing to realize. And I don't think that we want to jam our foot on the accelerator and try and collapse American society so we can hope to build it back better. It ain't gonna go the way you like it, because while we're doing that, everybody else is going to be making moves. And Josh, your thoughts?
Dorf, what exactly are you describing as the collapse? Do you mean that, the country, parts of the country secede and we become two nations? Do you mean
it doesn't even necessarily have to actual uniformed factions shooting each other within our borders? So kind of a heavier version of what you saw in Washington, D.C. over the weekend, where you had Proud Boys v. Antifa. Let's just call it Team Red versus Team Blue. Or even, there could be multiple factions within both sides that sort of loosely work together, or three teams, or you could have two non-state actors and then the state trying to get both of them, any sort of combination thereof. Breakdown of the societal order of the United States. The world order will change, and we won't like what we wake back up to when all the dust settles here within the United States.
Okay. Now, before I get going, so you don't think peaceful secession is possible?
No.
In any way?
No. And if I'm the government of the United States, I don't let it happen. If somebody tries to secede, even Texas, I crush it. Texas tries to leave, I keep them.
Okay. Yeah, no, and that may happen, that may happen. I don't at this point. I mean, neither one of us are president or, in power. I wish one of us was. It'd probably be a saner place to live.
Eligible yet. I'm old enough yet. I am not eligible. I can actually not be in the Senate.
Oh, Jesus.
I can join the Senate in 22. I could be a congressman at this point.
You had to bring that up. You just that wasn't that you just couldn't let that slide. you just had to turn. All right. Well, I am old enough to be president of the United States, and I even was in the last election. But so you could start running for Senate right now, though.
I could run next time around. I could run for Senate. I could have been in Congress for a couple terms. I can run for Senate next time around.
Right on. That's good. glad you're finally getting around to getting married anyway, and then you can start this political career. You're a whippersnapper, I realize. I was working on my first divorce when I was your age.
Thanks for the optimism, buddy.
No, that's not gonna be you. You got this. Listen, when it comes to a collapse, I think there's different ways to define that. Sometimes when I say I'm looking forward to a collapse, I don't necessarily mean the nation is fractured and everything is ripped apart. Mm-hmm. But what I do mean is I do think that people from time to time, what was the old Thomas Jefferson quote? The tree of liberty must be often watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Well, I'm not going to go that far. But what I will say is that people need to be reminded every couple generations of how bad certain ideologies are. People need to be reminded of how bad totalitarianism is, how much it doesn't work. People need to be reminded about how bad communism and fascism can be. So when I hear people say, don't elect Joe Biden, don't elect Bernie Sanders, oh my God, they're going to turn us into a socialist country. I don't like Donald Trump either. I hate his tweets, but we can't let this country turn socialist. Well, if our system actually works at all, if there's anything to it, and this is the one thing I like to say because, every election, this year you heard it more than ever, but every election this is the most important election of our lifetime. This is the most important election
I would say
in American history.
I heard that more in 2016 than this time around.
Did you? I think I heard it more this time, but mainly I think just from Republicans who, were scared to death that Orange Man wasn't gonna be their president anymore.
I don't think it was Orange Man wasn't gonna be their president anymore. I think it's the Democrats have decided to run a guy with dementia, and we're gonna give him the nuclear launch codes.
Oh, I think it was Orange Man wasn't gonna be our president anymore. I think that's what it was about. I think it was a big pissing contest.
I'm not saying that there wasn't a faction that had that belief. I would think the majority was Dementia Man about to get nuclear launch codes.
Perhaps. Either way. I think I always like to say if one election with our great system, I love the Constitution. I love the system as the way it is supposed to work. But if electing one man to be president of the United States is just the end of America, then guess what? It was already broken.
Game is already over. Broken. We were already in checkmate.
Right. And if the Republicans think that they were going to elect Donald Trump, he was going to drain the swamp, and that we as a country were then never going to elect an evil Democrat ever again, then they were fools. If your game plan meant that no Democrat can ever be president again, then it was a really foolish game plan, and vice versa for the Democrats, because we have a two-party system and it goes back and forth. And all throughout American history, you're not going to find, just a flurry of presidents in a row. I think about four in a row from a party, I think is the record, and it's been a while for that. I want to say I don't have that in front of me, but I could figure it out, but I don't want to sit here counting my fingers and stuff while we're trying to do a podcast. But I want to say it's 4 in a row of one party is the record.
Yeah, it would be FDR. It'd be FDR.
No, I mean 4 presidents.
Oh, 4 presidents in a row. Okay.
No, I mean I don't mean four terms. There's definitely been plenty of times where there's 4 terms because
just
2 people
my brain
will,
here, and I think that would be it. If you were counting terms, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, no.
the most
in that
recent
case,
one.
it'd be in that case it'd be 5 because Truman wins after FDR. But no, I mean 4 presidents, four guys being president in a row, of the same party. I think is the record, and that's rare as hell. I mean, really, that's rare as hell. You have this with president number 3 through 6, but that's basically at a time when the other party was crumbling.
It was still Federalist versus Anti-Federalist, right?
A Federalist versus what historians call the Democrat Republicans. Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Monroe, and John Quincy Adams are Democrat Republicans. At the time, they probably would have called them either Republicans or Jeffersonians, but historians refer to as Democrat Republicans. They have nothing to do with the Democrats or the Republicans in modern day. Then if you go after the Civil War, what you got Grant, Hayes,
I'm bad at this, so I'm not gonna
Chester A. Arthur, Garfield, Garfield. Technically, no, right there would be a 5th because then you get then Grover Cleveland breaks it up. Okay, so yeah, you got 4 right there. I think that's it right there. Is after the Civil War, you got 4 Republicans in a row, and that's counting a guy dying. By the way, that's counting a 3-month president dying, and so with Garfield only living about 95 days, something like that. That counts him. So it was never going to happen. Is my point? This idea that then now the Republicans have just the good guy Republicans. Donald Trump has done it. We're going to drain the swamp, and they're just going to rule forever, and the reign of Republicans that aren't actually conservative will live forever. That was stupid. That wasn't going to happen. Okay, so I know they would have liked it to last a little bit longer, maybe a 2-term Donald Trump, and then Ivanka Trump or a hand-selected Trump dude
Don
to
Jr.,
run
man.
next, kind of like.
Hey, I'll tell you
Yeah.
what. If you had the 2015 through 17 political instincts of Donald Trump packaged with the face and speaking ability of Don Jr., you might literally have the God Emperor memes. Pass a constitutional amendment to let the guy run forever. I'm only half joking. Quite frankly, if the political instincts were Don Jr. had the political, if Donald Trump had the body of and speaking ability of Don Jr. and he harnessed his instincts from 15 to 17, he wins 2020 in a landslide, and probably coasts whoever wins the nominee after coasts to victory in 2024. Like I'm that dead serious. Unfortunately, the volcanoes got to him in 17 and beyond. Cost him re-election. But anyway, sorry.
Unfortunately, now people with the last name of Trump will be forever loved, no matter what, by a good, healthy little portion of the populace, and will be vehemently hated and despised by a good portion of the populace. So if your last name is Trump, you're never gonna kill it, because it's a love-hate thing for the majority of voters. It doesn't matter what they say. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter what they say. It's not based on logic or reason. It's based on emotion and feelings, like most things that ruin stuff. But listen, Dorv, I would love to tell you that the nation's worth saving. I would love to tell you that.
It's not even the nation, Josh. If we fight for
I
this
would
nation,
love.
we give up on the West. Because without America, the West
The
can't
West is done, bro.
the West can't stand up to the East. I don't want to.
The West is done.
I don't want to live in. I don't want to live in a world dominated by Eastern philosophy. I don't.
I mean, the U.S. is already. The U.S. already is the West. The West is destroyed. Western Europe, they're done. Australia, done. They are fragments of themselves. They have given up everything that made them great. They have abandoned. They are nothing. These are
dishing out heaping help pills here, man.
These are worthless nations. They are worthless nations. Truly, they are truly worthless nations that exist now on a higher up scale than other places simply because of a rich history.
And
the idea that
natural resource
France
positions
is, I mean, I'm not even trying to compare them to China, Russia, the Middle East. If the Middle East could get together, I mean, and just stop.
Still can't grow their own,
man. Just right. I know, but I don't know. They got oil.
Could buy their own
but the
spades,
idea that
but they can't
a
grow
country like the idea that a country like France is more powerful or deserves more global power than a country like I'm just gonna get than like Brazil is stupid. They're there. They have their spot on the UN Security Council. They have ultimate veto power forever. They they're industrialized, so they think they have a right to chime in and speak up, but they're broken. They're broken. They're there because they have a rich history. That's it. That's it. No other reason. And same goes for Spain. Same goes for Italy. I mean, Italy's only still in the conversation because it's a great place to go on vacation. But that's it. And quite honestly, although Germany's got a kick-ass economy and they always pump out stuff, Germany and the UK, they're not much better. They're really not. I mean, the European Union, as much as I hate it and as much as I think it was a terrible idea for the people of Europe, it had to be done because those countries standing alone are worthless.
Well,
they're worthless, broken.
The European Union
nations.
was also essentially formed so we could give everybody collective skin in the game, so we'd stop going to war against each other every day, every 10 years, or the European power. And Germany would stop killing each other. The Italians,
the European
Union sold itself out down the river culturally when they opened their borders, when they admitted Turkey. Well, they haven't. They sort of admitted Turkey, kind of. In praise of the almighty euro. Like, this is gonna make me sound so like European right wing, which has a name, but like even like the French and the Germans and consequences of their own policies, where their culture is rotting out from underneath them, which is gonna when the culture goes, everything else that makes them great, such as their economic might, goes right behind it. So then the European Union, that quite frankly, if you're a conservative, like, you would fit right. If you're an American conservative, you'd fucking love Hungary and Poland, because they're essentially trying to establish a Catholic theocracy. They're not small government folks, but it's at the same time they're spending their wealth on their own people, their productivity on their own people instead of globalist or big business interests. Like in Hungary, Hungary has a declining population. Their birth rate does not support a growth at a stable level or growing level. It's a sub replacement level. They're literally paying folks to have families because in the long term, have economically productive citizens to support the senior citizen welfare state at the end. Your country's doomed to collapse, or you have to import a workforce, which will cause the degradation of your country. So they're literally paying folks to have children. Doesn't that sound like the ultimate American conservative superstate? I'm not saying we should do that here, but
in some ways,
God, and even more black pills for me here in the middle of this pandemic, and you have a recession. This isn't arguably until the middle of the first quarter of this year, we were at full employment in the United States. Everybody who wanted a job had a job, and jobs were wage growth was especially at the bottom third of the earning level was exploding because there wasn't enough people to work the jobs. And that's when you quite frankly have a more loose immigration policy because you need bodies to fill jobs. The economic productivity is there to support it. You can be more loosey-goosey with your immigration policy to bring in foreign to support your growing economy because your domestic workforce has full employment. We were almost there. However, now you're in a recession. You have a regionalized unemployment crisis based on whether or not your governor's a Democrat. Yet we have Mike Lee, supposedly libertarian.
Tell that to Ohio.
Republican, well, Ohio being like one of the lone exceptions. You have the supposedly libertarian, Republican senator from Utah, Mike Lee, passing a H-1B visa expansion to all those essentially create Indian competition, because specifically eliminating quotas per country and allowing essentially us to import India's technological workforce to drive down the labor costs of the upper middle class. Which, we've tailored what little tailoring of our education system we've done here over the past several decades. Are you fucking kidding me? If that's not I still think the idea of America and Mike Lee did some great talking per se when the Republicans were out of power. Delivered some great floor speeches, did some great interviews about the ideas of America and the founding principles. But since the Republicans got back into power, he's become a swamp creature. Romney too.
Love Dorf.
It sounds horribly pessimistic on my part, but we don't have an American first nationalist party here. We had an American first nationalist politician that happened to hold the White House and follow through on those ideas for a couple of years before the machine ground him down into being a globalist again. If we really had that sort of America First conservative national party, argue again, because it's been forever since we've had one of those. Unless, of course, we have that again, we're going to need a common enemy. I hate to break it to you, but if you want to stop this, this is going to sound terrible, neo-lib of me, but if we want to stop this and rot, we need a common enemy again. We need a hot war. We need to fight an opponent that could be a threat to the homeland. That's one way to end this rot. We need to. Not saying that I would actively encourage this, but a war with China or Russia would fix what divides us. When all of a sudden, it sounds terrible, but I'm not advocating for this. But if we started shooting at an equally armed opponent, or near peer, I believe is the correct term for that. If we had a hot war near peer where maybe under threat, bombed at any moment, we might stop bickering amongst each other, realize how much we have in common, and get back to loving thy neighbor again. Seems like a steep cost to pay for that.
Would we, though? I mean,
I'd hope so.
I mean, are you even sure we would? Are you sure? Because I'm not. I'm honestly not sure.
And Josh, I don't even think you're wrong there, because there's so much perverse financial incentive to be the opposition or the resistance in that. Don't let distract you. China's just misunderstood. Vodka drinking Russian man, not so bad. Like, you're probably not wrong. There'd be a certain amount of people from the party that was not in power that would adopt that position because it would be politically convenient at the time.
Listen, Dorf, I'm not sure that if Dallas, Texas got nuked, that there wouldn't be people on the left saying, well, they had it coming for this and this and this. And I'm not picking on one side here, because if LA got nuked, I'm not sure there isn't people on the right saying, oh, whatever, screw them. I was hoping California would get destroyed anyway and fall off the face of the earth. I'm not sure that the breach is repairable at this point anymore. And you think you were dropping black pills. I got some black suppositories for you, man. These, you can call me a tinfoil hat, you call me whatever the hell you want. But the quote-unquote conspiracy theorists have been talking about the New World Order and what it's going to do. It's a conspiracy theory, even though presidents, use the term New World Order on a regular basis, actually. But, they've been talking about the New World Order. There's people out there scared that the New World Order is coming. I get news for you guys. The New World Order is not coming.
It's here.
The New World Order is not on its way. It's here. It's here. It's the United Nations. It's all those different. It's NATO. It's all these different organizations. Google image the UN in Wuhan, China. Coincidentally, before this happened, in the basically the worship scene they threw in Chinese stadiums over the UN. The New World Order's here, guys. It already happened. This country could have been, was great. Not to sound like Donald Trump, but I didn't know how else to say that.
Tag, man.
The Constitution was awesome. I mean, seriously, the Constitution's awesome. The Constitution to this day is still the best political document ever written in human history. Yeah. It's incredible.
It is.
But
and you know what?
We're not following it. We don't use it, Dorf. We don't use it. We're not using it at all. Except for some minor procedural issues, we don't use it. And neither party is talking openly about how the only way to save this place is returning to those roots. And I don't mean returning to those roots like going back to 1970. I mean going back to 1800. The way we actually used to view the Constitution. Because we're not following it, man.
It's just been an opposition to those in power, you know, an obstacle rather. Excuse me, to those in power. God, at least my entire lifetime and back to the era that you just referenced there, the 1870s. Is that what you said?
Yeah, no, I said it needs to go back to 1800 to,
Fair enough.
you know, to the way we viewed the Constitution in 1800, 1830, if you will. What, you know, around those times, even into the first part of the 20th century, there were still a lot of politicians who viewed that. You still
Josh,
have your Calvin Coolidge's,
is a lot of this
your Tafts,
just because politics in America ceased being a gentleman's game and turned into Machiavellian power games? Because now I feel like the most of the reason that people are so cynical or act the way they do within politics is because if you lose, the other side isn't gonna, you know, you're not gonna accept your gracious defeat. They're gonna punish you for it. As you're seeing now, you're seeing folks advocating for Trump enablers or Trump administration officials to go on lists so they can be driven out of polite society. Quite frankly, the way that the MAGA types treated Hillary Clinton until Joe Biden was the nominee, you know, Hillary for prison, stuff like that. You know what? I'm not saying Hillary Clinton is squeaky clean or James Comey did a stand-up job in his handling of her affairs. And quite frankly, if you or I did the shit, we'd be in jail. But the American tradition and part of what makes America great is we don't try and throw our political opponents in prison. We don't have them whacked. We don't do that here. And unfortunately, we've kind of stooped to the next closest level of that is we don't let our losers be gracious or have gracious defeat. Try and fucking destroy them. And both sides are guilty of that, guys. I you know, but they do it. But they do. You both do it. So shut the fuck up. And if you want this cycle to end, somebody's gonna have to stop. But you get back to the Machiavellian power game here. The one that lays down their arms first is the one that's going to get pummeled. So neither side is going to do it. Neither political faction is going to do it. And no offense, Josh, the Libertarian Party sounds great on paper, but they're politically impotent. They'd have such a great in here, and there's no excuse anymore. You're not fighting for airtime on ABC to make your candidates known. You have the ultimate power to get your message out there and penetrate through the mainstream shield. The political part, the Libertarian Party gets every time it in the convention gets in a fucking circle jerk about how to be the most libertarian, getting caught in the weeds and social issues that normies don't give a fuck about. About, you know, who's the most libertarian.
Well, you know, the problem with that,
it inevitably devolves into like, how close can we get to practically openly endorsing pedophilia? Because, you know, if they're consenting, that's ultimately what every libertarian convention dissolves into.
I think that's. I've followed libertarian conventions for a long time. I think that's pretty inaccurate, honestly. But what I will say is this: this is the problem with the libertarians. You're saying that they want to always argue over who's the most libertarian. Yeah, they do, but that's not who they run. It isn't who they run at all. I mean,
well, because those who actually have power in the libertarian
run people. Hang on. They run the people who pander to the people that won't give them the time of day. The Republicans and Democrats pretend like the libertarians don't exist. I mean, I was laughing. I listened to so much radio, so much, you know, stuff, you know, before the election. And I'm a Jo Jorgensen supporter, even though she was my fifth choice out of 6. I was a very reluctant one. And now it seems like the Libertarian Party wants to, which this isn't unusual for a political party, Jorgensen lost, so they want to crown Spike Cohen as their new king of the libertarians. And quite frankly, he is the ultimate panderer. I mean, the guy's the biggest weenie on the planet. He really is. And this is coming from somebody that agrees with his ideology. I agree with his ideology, but instead he'd rather pander to
You're trying to impress the two
political parties. Anyway. Exactly. That's their
the
problem.
Republicans and Democrats hold a party every year. And you're not coming anyway, but you're still trying to impress them. Fuck it. In the China shop.
Right.
Knock down the establishment. Be fucking bold. But no, we're gonna try and
exactly.
We're gonna have our candidate endorse BLM. Like, come the fuck on.
Right. No, it's ignorant. It's ignorant. So, so that's what they run. I mean, you had guys out there like Jacob Hornberger, who was, oh my God, you put that man as a complete unknown on a debate stage with Dementia Joe and Orange Band. He's getting more than 5% of the vote, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you. I'm not saying he's winning, because people still love their R's and love their D's. But I promise you, you put Jacob Hornberger on a debate stage with those two guys, and I was going to say give them equal time. No, you don't even need to give them equal time. You don't even need to be fair to them. The debates are unfair. Put them on there and be unfair to them. I promise he's getting Ross Perot numbers. That's why the Republicans and Democrats, who are pretty much always on the same side, guys. Listen, the Republicans and Democrats are on the same side. There was, I wish I had it in front of me.
And Josh is, and that's because
leader of an African country. I believe it was Zimbabwe.
The Mugabe? Is that who you're getting at?
Okay. No, I believe it was I can't remember. He was accused of having his country be a one-party system. He was vilified by, the Americans who
Robert Mugabe.
have it right. Said, "Oh, your elections are." Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Your elections. They said his elections were nonsense because they only have a one-party system. His quote was, "The Americans only have a one-party system too. Just in typical American showmanship, I'm paraphrasing, they have two of them." And he's right. He's right. Listen, I agree with some of the things you said, Dorf, earlier. Not all. You made some great points, though. Personally, I would welcome the collapse if it wasn't planned. I would welcome the collapse if it wasn't going to definitely be replaced by something worse. And I'm not one of those people that says, oh, the collapse, you inevitably have to have big government because they'll come in. No, I'm saying in this particular instance, it's inevitable because it's pre-planned. It's pre-planned. There are forces trying to destroy this country from the inside out. And it's working. It's going to work. The Constitution that I love and that some of you out there may love, some of you out there may think, we're not using it. We were taught in school that the Constitution was the highest law of the land. It's not. They don't use it. It's not functioning at all anymore. And even when you say, oh no, we still use the Constitution because Electoral College. No, we still use the Constitution because of, we still have Congress, we still have this. No, it's tradition is dictating how we run things, not the Constitution. We're picking and choosing off of it. It's like you're saying, yeah, it's like, hey bro, come check out my Hemi. I got this 67 Charger Hemi. And you're like, oh, that sounds cool. And you go out there and it's rusted out. And I put some 4-cylinder in it from a Honda.
But it still has the Hemi sticker.
No, then I, attached it to and I attached it to an old Trans from a Dodge Omni. And it's, in there and you're like, dude, I don't think it's using a Hemi anymore. You're like, and I'm like, hey, what are you talking about? It runs. And I fired up and sure enough, we're plugging down the road 35 miles an hour. running 6,000 RPMs. And, it hasn't blown up yet. It's broken, man. It's broken. You're just kind of using bits and pieces of an old system. It's the old way that Congress dictates, and a bunch of stuff that a lot of people out there, even elected officials, think are part of the Constitution, but they're not. They're just tradition. I mean, show me in the Constitution where it talks about
the doctrine of standing, as you've seen in the courts, in the Supreme Court, what they choose and don't choose to see. In the Constitution, the exclusive place to settle disputes between two states is the Supreme Court. A suit between two states this week for lack of jurisdiction.
Sure.
What? Like, it's enumerated, guys. Like, I'm not saying that Trump would have prevailed on the merits, because it's a pretty there's an art compelling. They were wishing to challenge it, that the electors clause can be interpreted as the states are allowed to run elections however they fucking choose, and if they decide to, the governor gets to vote for everybody. That is a valid, potentially valid. It hasn't been adjudicated yet. A potentially valid way to do business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it would have prevailed on the merits, but the Supreme Court cucking out and refusing to even hear it is just an absolute breakdown of the Constitution that just perplexes me. How I'm not even mad about Trump put a third of them on the bench. Like, don't they owe him something? It's just no. Like, you are the exclusive venue to settle disputes between states.
Yeah.
Don't refuse to hear it. If
Dorf,
you hear the case, and you could throw it out on the laugh test, but you don't refuse to hear it.
Sure. Dorf, so many things out there that people think are just, it's the Constitution, because they've never read it. Most people haven't actually read it, and if they did, it was years ago, and they probably didn't take the time to really understand it. They were reading it for a high school project.
They probably read the SparkNotes version,
right,
which was written by a revisionist. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. So show me in the Constitution where they mention the House Majority Leader, or the Senate Minority Whip, or the Secretary of Defense, or all these positions that we view in such high esteem here. None of that crap's in the Constitution, guys. None of that crap. It's junk. None of that's in there, okay? That's our tradition. So some of the traditions are held on to for shits and giggles. But we're not following the Constitution. It's completely defunct. We're not using it at all. I mean, look at the Constitution is supposed to defend your rights. Guys, wake up. We have no rights. In the United States of America, you have no rights as far as the government is concerned.
We invented a pandemic clause. And in the tradition of...
I mean, we have... Even before that, Dorf, we have no freedom of speech. There's no Second Amendment. The government, now, especially with the pandemic, with the lockdown... I don't like when people say that this was caused by the pandemic. No, it wasn't caused by the pandemic. It was
caused by
coronavirus didn't take away anybody's job. It was caused by the lockdown. Government controls business.
Cowards in government, yes.
They control religion. They control sports. They control entertainment. They control everything now. And it's been working towards this slowly. Not so slowly in the year 2020. It's been working towards this for a long time. We don't have any rights. If a right can be suspended, even for 1 minute, if your right can be suspended, then you never actually had the right. You never had it. If they can tell you how you're allowed to buy guns, you don't have the right to bear arms. If there are certain things you're not allowed to say, even if it's just a few, even if it's just like 3 or 4, you don't have freedom of speech. If they can shut down your church, you don't have freedom of religion. If they can take down your YouTube videos, I know that's a private corporation, Josh. It's a private company. It's not the government doing that. It's a private company.
Josh,
if they can take them down, you don't have freedom of the press.
It takes government. It should have to play by those rules.
Of course it should. Of course it should. You know, when the founding fathers, okay, so you want the thing they really ignore? It's the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is completely ignored. So when the founding fathers said these people need to have freedom of speech, it was implied that people were going to actually hear that speech. I mean, the idea that you would say, you have freedom of speech, you can say whatever you want in your home. Okay, guess what? Even in like Nazi Germany, even in communist Russia, even in, I don't know, like the Mongol Empire, when, there was no such thing as rights, you were always allowed to whisper things to your wife in your own home. Okay? that you were always allowed to do that, guys. Even in the most totalitarian regimes, it wasn't until very recently in the supposed quote unquote free countries of the West that all of a sudden now you might have to think twice even in your own home, because you might have some device that you purchased that might be listening to you. Or maybe you're crazy and you do a podcast out of your home, like you and I, Dorf. Mm-hmm. But you always had the right to say what you want in your own house. Duh. I mean, really, that was always a thing. You think when they were writing the Bill of Rights that people in England under King George didn't have the right to whisper, King George sucks, to their wife or their brother-in-law when he was over for a
mead,
a pint of ale?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, no, you had that right. You didn't have that right, but you could get away with it. So now it's the same thing. You don't have any rights. You have no rights. So what good is the United States of America if you don't have rights, you don't have liberty, you don't have freedom? It's useless, man. I mean, so yeah, will it hurt the economy when this place goes down? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I hope it's not as bad as you made it sound, Dorf.
The economy is people, and one thing I got in an argument with a Twitter NPC today, made the point that they've only had a negative correlative effect on cases and deaths, yet we still do them. What do you call 3,000 deaths a day? Well, that's happened once. And secondly, 8,500 people on average, and the average day in the United States every single day. In exchange for attempting to save people, the average person that dies of COVID, and the vast majority, if you look at COVID deaths, really, really fat tail towards the above average life expectancy and beyond are the people who are dying in the vast majority of cases here. In an attempt to save people who were going to die anyway, generally speaking, I'm not saying there's not exceptions to this, we're fucking Gen Z and their development as human beings by locking them in their homes devoid of human interaction and arguably the time or human interaction. God, we could talk about quality of education in public schools to death, and it's not great, but the current status quo is worse. I think that isn't up for debate. So much so, Josh, you pulled your own kids out of school, right? You and your ex-wife are homeschooling your two youngest, correct?
My two youngest, yeah. And my two teenagers, I cannot stress how how terrible this has been on them. You know, this lockdown.
So continue.
They're okay. They're strong kids. They're doing well, but they are. This has been awful.
So
Awful
we're
for
fucking Gen Z.
somebody who is going into a senior year of high school and a freshman year. Yeah,
We're fucking Gen Z. The third world largely relies on the economic overproduction in food and money of the first world so they can eat on a given year. Well, there is no excess right now, so guess who's going to starve? The third world. The first world to go into a depression, all to on the false belief that we can save people that were on death's door anyway. That even if you want to go ruthless, absolutely ruthless, we're sacrificing to save the unproductive.
potentially save.
Yeah, potentially. That's why I said the false belief that we can play God and stop a viral respiratory ailment, which, oh, by the way, kills less than, what, 0.1% of people it infects?
And by the way, it's so nice that the benevolent government would just assume that a 70 to 85-year-old sick person just doesn't want to see their family for that last bit of their life.
Oh, trust. So as we talked at the top of the show today, I got engaged yesterday. We went to tell my fiance's grandmother, who's in a nursing home in the local area, today. We essentially had to break in to tell her. Didn't trespass because we kind of fibbed to get outside. We were outside and we only saw her for about 3 or 4 minutes to avoid her getting caught, because if she got caught doing that, they would have made her isolate in her room without other human contact for 2 weeks.
Well, that's awesome that you did that, though, Dorf. That really is cool. That
we consulted with.
You made the effort and got there and did that.
It's her mom's mother. We consulted with her, like, hey, like, is this worth the risk? We want to tell her she's struggling with dementia. She doesn't do well talking to people on the phone. She needs to see your face to really understand what's going on. Yeah, I guess it's worth it. But she had a trip to the hospital earlier during COVID era, where she was forced to stay in isolation away from her friends. So her husband is been deceased for about 7 years. Her friends are her really only. I mean, most of her family lives locally, but the other crazy coots in the in the nursing home are what get her up. Let's put it that way. She was forced to stay away from those folks for 2 weeks when she had to take a brief trip to the hospital for some non-COVID related breathing issues earlier this year, this fall. And quite frankly, the isolation almost killed her. She essentially stopped.
Dorf, I haven't seen my grandma.
I have seen my grandparents. My mom's parents are both still alive. My dad's parents are gone. They got it. They are currently on the back end of recovery from it. My grandmother, they're over. They're over it. They're still. It kicked their ass. They're gonna live. They're not gonna have any long-term consequences from it. My grandmother suffers from atrial fibrillation, so frequently needs medical intervention at a regular rate. She has been past the mandatory CDC guidelines for having the coof and being able to not transmit it to anybody else by several weeks. She needs to have a procedure where they essentially put her under shock her heart so it goes back into rhythm. It's outpatient. Because she has to take pass a PCR test before that can happen, she can't currently get heart shocked back into rhythm because people are afraid of getting sued, despite the fact that she's 3 weeks past the mandatory quarantine period. but she's still failing a PCR test, and she probably will
Jeez.
for the next 6 months, because that's how the PCR test is run. It picks up dead virus and live virus and doesn't distinguish between the two. You're gonna be, if you have the coof and you take a PCR test, you will probably fail it for 3 to 6 months after, because you're still shedding dead virus. So she's unfortunately putting her heart at great risk, because the medical system that her cardiologist belongs to are fucking pussies, and they're afraid of being sued. So they're not gonna, heaven forbid somebody dies because of a fixable heart ailment, someone might get the coof, even though she's well beyond the guidelines here. I've had it up to here with this. Not to say I'm literally about to go crack skulls, but like, Jesus Christ, I'm about to go attorney shopping for a lawsuit. This is bullshit.
Yeah, it is. No, it is. No, my grandma is in complete isolation. Basically, has been from this entire thing. Her in the meantime, even her cell phone has been lost, broken, stolen. Who knows? So we basically can't even get a hold of her.
Can you get another one
my
to
dad
her?
and my cousin.
Will they even let you deliver her another one?
No. My dad and my cousin managed to go try to visit her, and they snuck around to the back window and talked to her through the window for a few minutes. But otherwise they wouldn't even. They were trying desperately to get someone to go, raise the blinds for her, so they could actually, kind of talk. But they kind of shouted through a mostly closed window, and checked on her. And my grandma's actually still. She's been in a nursing home for a long time. Mentally, she's still top notch somehow, and that's awesome, But she knows everything that's going on in the world, according to them. But I've not seen her since well before all this started, before these lockdowns, And who knows? I may never again,
Not alive, at least.
Who knows? You're talking about people. You're talking about people in their 90s here, So we'll see. Sucks, it's stupid is what it is.
So
but
the fiance and I have talked, not against the concept of a nursing home, because quite frankly, it gives the best quality of life to all involved in most scenarios. It helps manage aging the best way possible. If something happens like this when our parents are there, because talk to my dad, he's like, fuck that, put me in a home, like, I ain't coming to live with you. Believe that's a paraphrase of his exact quote. If something like this happens where they want to turn senior citizen centers into prisons, we're gonna spring them. We're gonna jailbreak, take them out of there by force if necessary, because we're not gonna let them lock our parents inside. They will come, it will be inconvenient, but they will come live with us. We won't let this happen to them. And thankfully, my two living grandparents, they're still independent. This hasn't happened to them. They've unfortunately been kind of on their own, isolated, and people that came to visit them probably gave it to them, unfortunately. Some time with them. I've spent some time with them since this all. I still try and call them at least once or twice a week. I have I'm very fortunate to have the boomer who knows how to use video chat. So to share the happy news last night with him on video. And
that's cool.
My brother's very tech. He's more tech literate than my mother, who ironically has a degree in IT. He didn't finish a. He didn't.
Your grandparents are still kind of young, though, aren't they?
80.
80. Oh yeah, that's okay. That's.
Yeah, they're my grandfather who didn't finish a 2-year junior college degree and was a officer for, he did his 25 years and has done, private investigation. He ran a parts counter at a Ford dealership. Like, he's done a bunch of other things since. But yeah, the guy is more tech literate and has taught himself small engine repair because he was bored. Like, he's more tech literate than my brother who has a 4-year degree in information technology. So, yeah, his own. Anyway, I'm fortunate, but I would say my they're not technically boomers, I believe. No, they're technically boomers. The boomers in my family are tech literate enough that we can still sort of keep them. I feel sorry for those who the boomers in their life aren't. Because unfortunately, too many of them died deaths of despair and or died alone when they shouldn't have. All because we thought we forgot to realize our own mortality or realize that, the risk of us giving grandma the year when she comes to Thanksgiving has always been a risk. And on the false belief that we can play God. This isn't Ebola. It's never been Ebola. It's never been that as, Middle East, MERS, Ebola, like we continually reference. Hell, even the original SARS. God, I love how we've taken like a 35-minute detour here on COVID, but
we did, but I think we got most of what we needed to say.
It still kind of fits into the dystopian feature. I have ultimately more respect for the politicians and the folks in public life here who are anti-lockdown. I'm going to give Ron DeSantis a lot of credit. He's the governor of Florida. He did initially lock his state down from late March to early May. Early May, he came out and said, "You know what? The data I was shown time showed that this is a lot more dangerous than it's turned out to be. We now have more data in, realize this isn't as big a risk as we thought. Fuck it, open up. We won't lock down again. I realize my mistake. I apologize. Let's get everybody here back to work." And Florida has done no better or no worse, despite the large, if you look at the population distribution graph by age of that state, has a really fat tail towards old people because a lot of old people retire there because it's nice and warm. Despite having a fat tail, is doing worse than anybody else in the United States. And also at the same time, he doesn't have an unemployment crisis. He's not going to have a tax funding crisis. People are flocking to Florida in droves, bringing their economic productivity with them because it's whatever amounts to a free state in the union with pleasant weather, largely pleasant weather. I'm gonna give him credit, and you know what? He admitted he was wrong, and he's taken no shit since, and that's given me the ultimate respect when people try and get him a gotcha question at a press conference, like, fuck you, like that's not your false assumption here. It's bullshit, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And that's essentially his line of attack this entire time, because I've kept my state open. And I'm doing no worse. We've never come close to running out of hospital beds. We're never come close to we're not nowhere near setting the death records in April. Fuck off. Like, you're about to go anoint Andrew Cuomo, the attorney general and like the greatest governor since sliced bread, despite the disastrous decisions that he refuses to own up to? And he's going to double, triple, quadruple, quintuple down on policies that don't, because that would means he would have to admit that his previous policy decisions were a failure. Come on, like, And the fact that now you have governors of individual states chirping at each other about this stuff, it doesn't, kind of bring it back to our topic here, doesn't help the collapsitarianism or the accelerationism here. I realize those are two independent ideological philosophies, but the it's not great, but at the same time, like, in a federalist system like we have, if California wants to be stupid and continue to and New York want to be dumb and continue to, like New York, for example, New York City shutting down in-person dining services, despite only out of their confirmed contract cases, less than 2% can be prescribed to dining scenarios. 75% are at home. We're gonna ban dining. Really? We're gonna ban in-person dining events. That's, if this is as dangerous as you say, it's not even putting a band-aid on a bullet wound, guys. Like 74% comes from transmission comes in the home. It's not putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. It's putting a band-aid on an artillery crater in your chest. Like you took a rocket-propelled grenade to your chest and you're trying to fix it with a small individual band-aid. Like, come on. Just admit that
you're calling it a band-aid on a bullet wound. I'm gonna call it salt on a bullet wound.
It's not even salt.
I mean, you're saying that the transmissions happen at
our battleship.
No, but you're saying you're saying transmission happens at home.
Yeah, let's.
You're making people stay home.
You're making people stay home. Yeah. That's a simplistic and reductionist, analogy there. I have.
It is.
But it's not a solution. It's just a quip. It's a better analogy, maybe, on battle.
It's a punishment.
On the battle, we've just taken a torpedo blow to our hull. Let's fix it with saran wrap.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's attempt to fix it with saran wrap. And I applaud.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I applaud the folks that have the balls and the courage to face certain financial ruin, imprisonment, destruction of their business, to say, fuck you, I'm staying open. You know what? You've given me no choice but to do it anyway. And unfortunately, the only way people are going to find out that I'm still open and come patronize me is I'm going to have to advertise that I'm defying you, which is going to cause me to lose my license, get me regulated into oblivion, potentially have the sheriff chain my door shut. I really am proud of the guys and proud of the courage that, like, the Belmar, New Jersey, the Attilas Gym, their local sheriff there in Belmar was ordered by the mayor to shut these guys down. They said no, we're not. They had to bring in jurisdiction officers to shut their gym down. Well, they boarded up the door, put a notice on the door saying you're not allowed in here. Well, to their credit, it's Ian Smith and the guys there. Said fuck you, kicked the barricades down, and just went back to doing business. They even temporarily got the guy running for Senate there declared their gym to be a campaign office. Because political activity wasn't restricted under the New Jersey COVID restrictions. So it's a campaign office now. Everybody here's a campaign volunteer. They've got,
on treadmills.
Yeah. To date, they've got over $1.2 million in fines. Between citations and arrests, the two owners have been arrested or cited over 60 times. Unfortunately, the system will probably make an example of them when all the dust settles and they finally have their day in court. I hope have the balls to step up and pay their for them, because you know what, they could have played the victim. They could have said oh, woe is me. We didn't win this battle. Let's just take it on the chin. We'll get him next time, guys. They said fuck you, and free men don't ask for forgiveness or permission. That's a line that they've frequently used, and they've got more courage than myself, and I'm more than willing to admit that. Josh, yourself, you've got more courage than myself throughout this. You've seen through this bullshit since the beginning. You haven't worn a mask once in public, not once, correct?
Correct. Never. And at this point, I never will.
I do my own little.
No. I don't cause fights. I don't cause scenes. If someone asks me to leave, I leave.
I do my act
No,
of
I don't.
Malicious compliance. I wear a polyester spandex neck gaiter in value of Swiss cheese. It's legally compliant. Doesn't restrict anything I'm doing. But you know what? I don't want to be confrontational. I don't want to start a fight. I fortunately live in a place where that would be highly unlikely to happen. But I'm acting cowardly. I'm giving in to a bullshit regulation that to date has only been, air quotes, proven by counterfactual. You can't, despite the now mounting evidentiary, trial-based studies of efficacy of masks and showing that they really, really don't do anything. I still comply because I'm a little coward, and I'm willing to admit that.
That's pushing it a little hard, Dorf. Most people are right there with you. We're the fact that Dr. Fauci and the other experts told you that
the public
masks
intellectuals
weren't a good idea.
The public intellectuals that are epidemiologists need to be tried for war crimes when this is all over. Dr. Fauci needs to be the first one. I'm not kidding. Where there needs to be a Nuremberg trial. He's caused the senseless death and economic destruction of countless people, not even just in the United States. When this is all said and done, we can do an honest analysis when we're through this entire thing 5-10 years down the line. Dr. Anthony Fauci will be directly responsible for millions of deaths that would have been preventable had he not advocated for economic lockdown. People will
the practice of epidemiology
should be forever discredited.
You're right.
With people alive. I'm not saying that it has no place in the public discourse, but we should really pay attention to who we listen to, because the folks that we've been listening to, they've proven to be absolutely useless.
Dorf, at this point, maybe it can be revitalized later, but the study of epidemiology at this point is a joke.
Quite frankly,
it's a disaster.
It can be saved.
Epidemiology.
Josh, it can be saved. It's just you gotta take.
Oh, it can be.
You gotta
with a whole bunch of different people.
You gotta get some folks in there that have some courage, because it's just overly cautious with statistics. You need to infuse some Wall Street J Trader boys and some of the AI folks into it, who actually are better with data science and more aggressive and more realistic with risk assessments. Because this whole idea that 3% of the original claim of 3% of everybody's going to die and this is going to affect everybody forever, and we don't know about the long haul COVID and reinfection, and there's been 6 global documented cases of reinfection since this all started. oh my God, we don't know how long immunity is going to last. Well, if evidentiary science means infection, it's very similar to SARS. Well, people who got SARS and beat it, guess who's never gotten it again? Those people. Immunity probably lasts decades, if not the rest, except in extreme.
And
the oh my God, herd immunity is a dirty word. We can't take policies that guide us towards herd immunity. What do you think a fucking vaccine does, dipshit? It moves us towards herd immunity. Yet we didn't have a choice at the beginning, but we want to take steps to prolong the suffering where, to be entirely honest, we had at the beginning. I can't blame people for taking the actions they took in March and April. As soon as May hit and there wasn't data on this thing, young and productive folk and otherwise healthy folk weren't dying. And quite frankly, if they were getting sick at all, they were maybe mildly inconvenienced and mildly uncomfortable for a week at most. As soon as the data started rolling in on that, the fact that we didn't tell people business that were otherwise young, it's just beyond me. What the people in epidemiology advising politicians and other government officials, lockdown. Oh my God, cases. Not all cases are equal. Josh, if you and I get it, it's not the same as our grandmother and grandfather. The chance that you and I would need to be hospitalized for it, we're more likely to require hospitalization this year from getting in a car accident than from COVID. Yet we still drive a car every day.
Absolutely.
The fact that we are so
that's true with a lot of things.
One-size-fits-all policies from epidemiologists have forever ruined their credibility with me. And you know what? The idea that
as far as I'm concerned, Dorf,
it's disturbing that the political sloganeering of the president-elect, if you want to call him that, is not legally the president-elect yet, but whatever, Joe Biden. The slogan here, in my administration, we're gonna trust science. I'm gonna experts. Well, your experts are fucking terrible. Throughout this entire, if those who just want to trust the experts and ruled by experts and usher on the technocracy, like, are ignorant of history, because every time that's been tried, look, that's a mass casualty event. 2/3 of this country doesn't have a college degree. You could argue the best presidents or rulers, leaders, government politicians that you've seen in this history of this country didn't have high school diplomas. You want to usher in a fucking technocracy. Guess what? You try and run a technocracy, there'll be a, quote, peasants' revolt pretty quickly. Because if the technocrats get their way,
we'll see.
That's if technocrats get their way, that's a great way for all of a sudden we're gonna trust experts to all of a sudden you need to go fucking kill yourself or not have a family because my planet's dying. And that becomes policy of the United States of America. Anyway, all right, I'm off now and I'm angry and
no, we should wrap it up, Dorf. Yeah. Listen, seriously, Dorf, at this point, epidemiology to me is up there with bloodletting from the late 1700s.
Might as well. You got about the same track record.
It's yeah, I mean it's worthless. It's worthless. So I will not be supporting it. I'll tell a story real quick. Listen, I am a firm believer. Most people out there just think I'm an asshole, because I fuck the system, because I stand up for things. I'm a believer that when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. It's how I feel. 3 days ago, I hadn't had really an issue with the mask thing in a while. I don't wear one. But I don't go that many places either. I don't flaunt it. I don't bust into stores constantly. and try to show it off that I'm a anti-masker, if you will, mask denier. I'm sure that's probably if that term hasn't been adopted already, it probably will be.
So no,
But my
gonna
apartment.
tether you with the mask or science denier. That's what you are.
Yeah. My apartment, they had a new policy. They wanted to give out stickers for people's cars, so they wanted to see registration insurance for all your cars. So okay, whatever. And also I need to re-sign my lease. My lease was up. Sign another 1-year lease. So they, and I was kind of ignoring it for a while because I was busy. I have a life. And they said, "Hey, Josh, you really need to come in here." They left a message, left a thing on my door. So I popped over there with my registration insurance for my, 4 vehicles that I, leave there or park there. And, I came in to sign my lease and I walked in, tiny little place, 2 people working there. The one girl, as I walk in, she puts her mask on, and she says, they instantly say, "Oh, you have to have a mask." I said, I don't really, I'm polite. I just say, no, I don't do that. I know these people. I've lived in this apartment for 4 years. I said, no, I don't have one. Oh, but you wanted me to bring this, so I'm bringing it to you. You requested that I came here. And she pulls a mask out of a thing and says, "No," but I said, no, I'm sorry. I can't do the mask thing. I don't do the mask thing. And I said, "We can do it outside if you want. But you requested I came here." So okay, well, Matt said, I said, "All right, or I'll just move," and I started to walk out. No, and it's the same thing that happens every time. It's no, it's fine, it's fine. As soon as you are willing to say that, okay, well then, if that is required for your service, then I don't require your service. As soon as you're willing to say that, in most cases, the problem goes away. I was getting new tires with the day after the mask mandate came through it. I'm getting new tires on my car. Going to Discount Tire. Oh, you need to have a mask. I'm sorry, sir. I can't do the mask thing. Can you put your shirt over your face? No, but I can go get tires somewhere else, sir. Guess who sold me some tires? I didn't call him an a-hole. I didn't scream and yell. I didn't make a scene. I just that's what I did. So if people out there, if they're looking for this, if they're looking for a way out, just be cool. Be nice, be cool, be polite, but make it very clear that I'll find somebody else to sell me tires. I'll find somebody else to rent me an apartment. I'll find someone else to sell me bread. You're not the only place in town that makes tacos. I'll go somewhere else. That's my advice to those of you out there. For those of you who just say, "Screw it, forget it." They say I got to wear a mask. I'll wear a mask. Okay, I got you. We could make this go away
if we wanted to,
by more people standing up. But there will be adversity. That fight will not be won overnight. There will be adversity. You will have the politicians saying, "The numbers are going up and it's because you didn't wear a mask." I mean, right now they're already saying that, which is ludicrous.
The crazy part is
97% compliance.
Public polling is at like 95 to 97% compliance, yet the cases keep going in the wrong direction. Cases.
Right.
No. Not denying.
It's because we don't have a pandemic, Dorf. We have a case-demic. We have a case-demic, not a pandemic. Mm-hmm. Big difference.
All right. But on that, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you had something else, Dorf. Whether it's this topic or our true topic, that's all I got for you.
We'll see how long this episode lasts.
Whatever you want to wrap it with.
Let's see how long this episode lasts online. Because you guys are guilty of
I bet it'll
COVID.
stay up on BitChute.
That reminds me, I need to get some more episodes published there. So, anyway, thanks for reminding me. I guess I'll do that tomorrow, kind of in the background while I'm working. But 22 of the Empire in Exile podcast. Thanks for joining us. We're trying to do this every week, not always on the same day. We've got a habit of going on Tuesdays lately. So, for Josh, I am Dorf. We will see you all next time, hopefully with a more sunny topic. I believe our next topic that we're going to do is Star Wars related. So less black pills, more the Empire did nothing. Have a good night, guys.
More lightsabers.